Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The End of Castles. And the name of this lecture is called Stroking the Ego. But first, let us get the disclaimer out of the way now. Just because a woman is trying to give a man good, sound advice doesn't mean she is male bashing. She is just trying to give a man some constructive criticism that can help him to be a better man. That's a woman that loves men and wants them to take the role of authority that God assigned to them. If my words bother you, then you have two options. You can turn off this channel or look at me as a mother giving her son some good sound advice about choosing a godly woman to help him achieve his godly purpose. So let me speak to the men as a mother. Now let's get started. My son, get a woman that will speak into your spirit instead of stroking your ego. As a seasoned woman, I have seen and heard a lot of things. Many social media messages telling women how to get a man, keep a man, how to get a man to notice her. Really? Has it gotten so bad in this world that we have to get advice on how to find a husband outside of God's instructions? Well, let me talk to you, my son. It's your authoritative responsibility to find a wife, not the other way around. To accomplish that goal, you must rely on one thing: your relationship with God, instead of what most men rely on, their personal preferences that revolve around their ego. My son, give me a moment of your time and let's travel down two roads. One is called ego, the other is called spirit. The ego is a person's sense of self-esteem or self-importance. The part of the mind that kind of mediates between or intervenes or intercedes between the conscious and the unconscious, and is responsible for reality testing and a sense of personal identity. Spirit is the non-physical part of a person, which is the seat of their emotions and character. It's the soul. GotQuestions.org defines it best. The human spirit includes our intellect, our emotions, our fears, our passions, and our creativity. That means you're not going back and forth between the conscious and the unconscious of your mind, trying to figure out what is reality from your own perspective to create your own personal identity. Let me repeat that. That means you are not going back and forth between the conscious and the unconscious of your mind, trying to figure out what is reality from your own perspective to create your own identity. Spirit deals with you as a whole person. Ego focuses on the external, while the spirit focuses on the internal. With ego, it can and will become a selfish way or desirable way of looking at life, and that sounds good. Of course, you want to live your life as desirable as you want it to be. However, that usually leads to temporary happiness, not joy, and never-ending life changes that can become disheartening. The spirit which was given by God focuses on the whole man, starting internally. What is he looking to accomplish in life that will make him a better man? What can he do to make others better people? It's not just about his personal agenda, but about how his life can enrich other people's lives and create a better generation for years to come, even after he's left this earth. And he can't accomplish that goal through his ego. He will need God's assistance. My son, I hear women say you must stroke a man's ego to get him to do things for you. And I also hear men say the same thing. But it sounds wrong and unbiblical. If ego is an external process, then you are only feeding the starving bear until he becomes hungry again, and you must continue to feed the starving bear until you run out of food or you get tired of feeding it. Even some women that agree that they get tired of stroking a man's ego continues to do it anyway. Well, that means it's not working and God isn't involved. Because men and women don't realize there is a difference between stroking a man's ego and speaking life into his spirit. My son, when a woman speaks to your spirit, she is speaking directly to your authority giver, God himself. And when a woman does that, she never gets tired of lifting up her man. You may not receive the message from her, but God will increase a sense of righteousness on you, where she won't have to continuously keep reminding you of how great you are in the Lord. You will see that in her submission to you. Did you notice I said how great you are in the Lord, not your own ego? So you ask, what does this have to do with your godly purpose? Oh, my son, I am so glad you asked. If you seek someone to constantly stroke your ego, you are not focusing on God's purpose, but your own. As a man with godly authority, you should never separate from God to accomplish his godly purpose. Did you hear me clearly? That doesn't sound right. You should never separate from God to accomplish your godly purpose. The role of your wife is very important to God. We know that from Scripture. Proverbs chapter 18, verse 22. Whosoever findeth a wife findeth a good thing, and obtaineth favor of the Lord. KJV. However, that scripture does not say to choose any woman to be your wife, or you may end up sleeping with the enemy. And sleeping with the enemy will never bring you peace. Temporary happiness, but not peace. And the temporary happiness is only there so the devil can assure you won't leave the relationship or realize you're sleeping with the enemy. So Satan continues to control your life in a facsimile of happiness, not joy that God provides. Again, what does all this have to do with your godly purpose, my son? Listen. Some men choose women that are physically attractive, and that helps stroke his ego. He wants his friends to be jealous of him. He wants to seem like he has a heightened sexual life with this woman. He wants to seem like he has the trophy on his arm every time he goes in public. Yet, some of his friends don't see what he sees, especially if they are tapped into the Spirit of God themselves. To them, the attractiveness of the woman doesn't outweigh the unattractiveness within her heart. The only man that think is cute is a man that needs multiple women to stroke his ego. My son, some men are on the brink of fulfilling God's purpose in their lives, and they have allowed a woman to come along and their focus is no longer on their godly purpose. have become more worried about satisfying their wife or girlfriend, so she won't leave, instead of God, because she keeps stroking his ego. Your external has taken over the internal, and the internal, where God dwells, is now craving for attention. The attention you are giving this woman because you don't want her to leave. She knows how to stroke your ego. Not only have you taken the wheel from God, but you are doing the driving. The woman is in the front seat. Your ego is in control from the back seat, and you are hiding God in the trunk. And he is banging on the trunk, trying to get your attention. My son, when you use the stroke of your ego to determine to be with a woman and later make her your wife, you are choosing from a fleshly point of view. Now, this doesn't mean all attractive women are not good women. It means they are few and far between, because many women have adjusted their personality to fit the man's so they can have a man, and the best method to get the man is to stroke his ego. Now, my son, I know what you are thinking. I know what you're thinking. Then just start speaking to my spirit then. If only it was that easy. See, when a woman speaks directly to a man's spirit, God is involved. And sometimes God has a way of making you uncomfortable when he's telling you something you don't want to hear, but it's best for you. You see, a woman that speaks into a man's spirit is not always speaking what a man constantly wants to hear, but she is speaking it in love. If it stings, go to God and ask him why she said what she said. If she was only the messenger, then God will guide you from there. But one thing is for certain: if it's of God, it will work out much better than anything your ego would have come up with. If you do listen and things turn out good, that woman will speak to you again about the same situation. And this time, the message will be speaking directly to your spirit in a good way, because God initiated the whole thing. My son, this is where the devil can deceive you. When a woman speaks to your ego, it will always be good news. But what is the saying? A friend that agrees with everything you say is not a good friend. Same thing goes with your woman. A woman that would allow you to jump into the flaming hot fire without any concerns is a dangerous woman that has a hidden agenda that doesn't include you. Coming from a woman's perspective, let me give you an example that is used quite a bit when we speak about women stroking a man's ego. If there is something in the house that needs to be done, such as cleaning out the garage or fixing something in the house, some women admit they must stroke the man's ego to get it done. And as long as they do it, they're fine with that. It gets the job done. My son, though, when a woman speaks to your spirit, you want to do things without her reminding you. You would fix things or pay for them to be fixed before she knew they were even broken. That spirit-speaking woman will make your life beautiful with the respect you receive from her. And everybody will see her display of respect towards you, which makes the people around you respect you also, because you chose her. You are the man that lacks nothing of value, mentioned in Proverbs 31:10-12. A wife of noble character, who can find? She is worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. If a woman has to keep stroking your ego, she will eventually get tired, because she starts losing respect for you. If she has to continue to feed into your ego, then she would start thinking, when do I get fed? And start seeking attention elsewhere to start feeding her ego. My son, no woman can satisfy all of your desires. Stroking your ego isn't the best method for a joyful life. I don't know if you are a man that likes his ego stroked, or whether you are with a woman that's just stroking your ego. All I know is there is a man that can answer that question for you. But keep in mind, when you ask him, you may or may not like his answer. Nevertheless, he will speak directly to your spirit, bypassing your ego. And I hope you enjoyed this episode of The End of Castles. And as always, when godly wisdom ascends, a new mindset begins. Bye-bye.